welcome to my crafty time. As you may know, if you have come back for another week, my name's Alex and I'm an Aussie living in the USA. You can find me over the internet on Ravelry as Lexistar, Lexxistar, and on Instagram as Lexic112. And yeah, this is a podcast where I talk about the bits and pieces of crafty things that's going on in my life at the moment. And seeing as it's been 2 weeks, there has been a lot. Yeah, a lot. So today I'm going to talk about some of the knitting I've been doing and spinning and some sewing and some kitchen misadventures. Alas, maybe just misadventures in general. So up front, I wanted to take a moment just to acknowledge all of the things that are happening in the US at the moment. So there is a lot going on right now. So, and of course I'm referring to the murder of George Floyd by the police in Minneapolis and the ensuing protests. And I've really struggled to come up with the words that I wanted to say about this, besides how important it is for people with privilege such as myself to acknowledge the privilege that we have through this society or in this society rather, and how I keep coming back to existing power structures want to reinforce themselves and to add to their power. But in this circumstance, I'm so glad to see all of the people who are out there trying to change an unjust power structure. And it's given me a lot to reflect on, particularly in regards to the blatant acceptable racism that exists in Australia. So I'm just going to try and be brave and speak up and keep learning and listening and trying to enhance the voices of people with less privilege than I've been accorded. I'm glad to see that Australia has joined this in the sense that it is using George Floyd's murder as a springboard to talk about Aboriginal deaths in custody and the systemic racism that is around Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people in Australia. And I know that it's not enough just to hope for lasting change, but you actually have to push it. So I'm going to try and keep it in the forefront of my mind and my actions going forward. Okay, so for today's crafty content, I thought I would start it off with what I'm wearing. This is a knitted tank top that I made in 2018. The pattern is Inez by Emily Nora O'Neill. So, excuse my purple trousers, but I made a lot of modifications to it because the fit was like kind of weird. And it's made out of bamboo pop, which is super comfortable, especially when it's getting hot here. So I have actually finished some things, as I mentioned beforehand. I finished my Pierce cardigan by Renee Callahan of East London Knits, which I'll put a picture in, or some pictures in here. Despite the fact that I completely miscalculated where like the V section of the neckline was, and so I put buttons up there, but I don't mind them as just decoration, so that will be good for when it eventually gets cold again. I also finished a cabled hat, which I will show you. This is made out of some of my own hand spun, and it's got cable and pearl texture on it, and I just kind of made up the pattern based on a Stitch dictionary. See, I think it looks kind of cute, although this like thing that the hand spun is doing in this big weird stripe is a bit odd, and unfortunately it didn't use all of it up, but it was fun to make, and it did knit up pretty quickly. The fibre that I've got in this hand spun is a mix of grey, merino, angora and silk, and it was dyed by Eggshell Bunny, who is a dyer who lives in Australia, in Victoria. So those are my 2 finished knitting projects. And so I've also been working on a few things since last we spoke. I will show you firstly the Daybreak Tea by Destiny Maya, because it is not very exciting. It is just more stock in it. And this is knit in Kobu, which is cotton and bamboo, I believe, by Lion brand. And as you can see, I've made some progress. I added the next ball in of this. I have 4, so hopefully that'll be enough. Once I finish knitting the body of this, it goes into like a mesh lace panel across the top. But as you can see, I am nowhere near there yet. I don't want it to be a crop top. I have completed 1 sock of the Little Moments socks that I was working on last time we spoke. The pattern is, oh gosh, it's got my hair in it, like everything, shedding so much. The pattern is Little Moments by Lisa K. Ross, and the yarn is Leading Men Fibre Arts, and the colour is Barbie's 90, and I think it's just the pattern and the colour of the yarn are just working so well together. I haven't started the second one yet, but I will at some point. We'll see. I'm feeling a little bit, work a bit on this, work a bit on that, don't really finish anything, just fluff around. So, and as you can see, I've been doing bits and pieces of all sorts of things. So I'm also working on the Ripple bralette again. I picked it up, not so much out of enjoyment of the project, but I really want to finish object. Like I said, it's been getting hot, and so I think a little bralette to lounge around the house would be good, especially seeing as I am making out of Hiku Kobasi. I've only just started the 3x3 route, so I think I've got to do that for like 4.5 inches before I start the shaping, and I'll get there. And yeah, it's out of Hiku Kobasi, which is cotton, bamboo and silk, and it's stretchy, so I'm hoping that it will work out well. And the colour is Cotton Candy. So another not particularly interesting knitting project. As for dream knitting, I'm thinking I need to swatch for my next sweater. And I've been saying to myself, so I need like a fingering weight cardigan, because that is like a glaring gap in my knitwear wardrobe at the moment, and for some reason I just can't make myself do it. So I have the yarn, I have needles, I just have no motivation. So we'll see. Maybe I'll talk to you about that next week, or the week after, or whenever I podcast next, to say that, hey look, I actually started on this thing that I said I was going to do. But I have been working more on my Vivid blanket. I've got 2 new squares to show to you today. So this is the Clun Forest hand spun that I was working on last time we talked, spun on my Aegean spindle, and I'll put a picture in here. Basically, I was a bit concerned when I was knitting it because the square was so small, especially next to the Shetland one, like basically the same size as the Shetland one without the border, but with the border on it. But as you can see here, Like, I aggressively block this, and I just think it has turned out so beautiful. It's this really sort of crisp fabric, and it is slowly shrinking back into its size. So I'll probably have to reblock it before I sew it together, all together. But I'm just so pleased with how that's turned out. It's given the eyelets really, really good definition. The other square that I've got is the Gotland, and you can see it looks much better with the light going through it, because I was a little bit unhappy with this. You can see it now okay with the light going through it, but if I hold it closer, you might be able to get an idea of how fuzzy it is. And it kind of, like, when it's flat on a surface without the light showing through it, it's kind of hard to see the lace pattern on it because it is so fluffy. And it was a completely different knitting experience to the Clun Forest. And you can tell, like, I blocked these roughly the same size, but the Clun Forest is just so stretchy that it is not really wanting to hold its shape so well. But that's been really fun so far. And it's a convenient segue into spinning, I guess. So I finished the Jacob spin, which I will also insert a picture of here. I got approximately 440 yards of a 2-ply, and I used about 400 and something grams. It was under a pound in the end after I used bits and pieces for other things. It was a big spin. Like, it took some time. It was fun. I don't know what I'm going to do with it though, because I feel like it's a little bit too rustic for a garment for me. And maybe I can make it into a rug or something and get my loom out. I'm not quite sure. But I did finish that. So I also finished this little tiny mini skein. This was a mystery fiber sample that came with the packaging from a spinner's control card that I bought recently, and it's only like 20 yards, and I spun it on one of my spindles. I think it might have been the Roadrunner, which is new, which I will show you. And then I chain plied it, and I was trying to chain ply it on the Turkish spindle, but it was just really difficult, and I find chain plying difficult anyway. I'm very new at it, but because it had like such distinct color repeats, I wanted to try and maintain them as best I could, and so I thought chain plying was the best response. Pretty happy with how this worked, and you can kind of see the colors, but I ended up chain plying it on a top well spindle, which I've kind of gone a little bit out of favor of using, but I found it kind of useful because I could park and draft much, like build up tension, park it between my legs, and then do the chain and let the ply twist travel up the chain that I had been creating without feeling like it was just running away from me. And I think because of that, the plying is much more consistent. So on this hat, this was also a chain ply that I did back when I had my Ashford traditional in Australia. And when I was knitting it, I could tell that there were some like severely underplied sections where it obviously just yanked out of my hand or something. Like I said, I'm pretty new to chain plying, and I find it quite a challenge. But so I finished that. And then I also spun up some more of my Australian fibre stash. This is the Lush Bunny blend from Chitchat. So the same dye that did the purple one. This one was dyed with walnuts and acorns, and it bled like a lot, but didn't transfer to anything else in the wash. So I think it might just be the excess colour. But you can see it's got like these beautiful sort of light pinky browns and almost neutral colors, and then there's like dark grays, and I just think it's so gorgeous. And I applied this 3-ply, and it's so good. After spinning all that Jacob, I wanted something luxurious, and this definitely fit the bill. So it's a blend of superfine merino, cashmere, silk, angora and tencel. So it was so smooth and slippery to spin that it felt completely different to spinning the Jacob. And I did this in a traditional 3-ply, and I tried to line up the colours as much as possible, but I'm not sure how well I did on that. And yeah, so traditional 3-ply, and I got about 287 yards, and I think it's like most of my spinning, it's a bit inconsistent, so I think in some places it's as fine as a fingering weight, but goes up to maybe like DK, so average sport, I guess. And then I have one more teeny sample skein. So this is not been finished yet, but this is a sample skein of some fibre that came with my Walnut Roadrunner from Jenkins, which is a new type of spindle they've got out at the moment. I realise I think I've got an addiction to Turkish spindles from Jenkins. They're so nice. So I just spun this 2-ply and it just wanted to spin itself. This is my new spindle. It's it's still a Turkish spindle, but it's a different design. The arms face up or flat rather than down like a traditional Turkish, and this one it flies really quick. It's made of walnut and it is 21.5 grams, and it's one of my lighter spindles, so I'm gonna have to spin on this a bit more and report back about how I feel about it. I do find so far wrapping the cops a bit challenging because they seem to want to slide closer to the shaft, so I don't know how I feel about that yet. So the spins that I have been working on, so I'll start with this guy. I've plied this already. This is Cotswold from Nistock Farms, and it's part of the Shave 'em to Save 'em project, and I was just feeling a little bit at a loss of what I wanted to do the other day, so I got out this bat and spun it as a traditional 2-ply, and I just love the colours. It's so beautiful. So dyed by Robin of Nistock Farms, and like I said, it's Cotswold, and I don't know how much is here yet. It was like 5.3 ounces. I tried to keep the ply and singles loose because the research that I had been doing about Cotswold is it's a long wool, and so sometimes it can, if you over spin or over ply it, it can turn into twine. This is still relatively soft even though it hasn't been washed yet, so I'm hoping it will stay that way. I don't know what I'm going to do with this. It feels, I could probably wear it next to skin, but spinning it was actually, my hands didn't know what they were doing. I don't think I've actually spun any long wools knowingly before. Like most of the things that I've spun so far seem to be like down braids or medium wools, and so to actually try and figure out what my hands were doing with a long wool was actually quite tricky. I found that the amount that I had to draft was significantly longer than I had been used to before, so that was one thing. Trying not to I was getting these weird bubbles like in the singles, which I don't know. I'm interested in trying some of this again just to see what it's like if it's perhaps in a different fibre prep, like maybe more of a comb top than a bat, because this, like I said, that was in a bat, which is a woolen preparation. So I'd be interested in trying it in a worsted prep to see if that actually makes that much of a difference. I love this colour though. It's so beautiful. I think I'm in a purple mood. So that's one of the spins I've got in progress. The next spin I have got is another Shave 'em to Save 'em spin. This is on my Aegean Jenkins spindle, and so as you can see, this is one of their more traditional spindle shapes, and this is the new one with the Roadrunner. The profile of the arms is very, very different on it. and this is a 30 gram spindle, so it is actually a little bit on the heavier side. And I was struggling with spinning this once I had about half of the capacity of this on, because it was just breaking. So my singles were just breaking when I was spinning it. So I just put it down and came back to it, and then looked at it properly and decided I just needed to try and do a shorter draft on it, and then also try and build up a little bit more twist, because I am spinning this woolen on the spindle. There we go. Colour's showing up right. It's kind of like this oatmeal-y, brownish, greyish colour. This is CVM. I think I mentioned that. I can't remember if I did. I've got more of this. This is just enough to go into my vivid blanket. And so yeah, for the shave 'em to save 'em, it's interesting too, because like the more I get to experience like these different wool breeds, the more astounded I am by just how different they are. So to me, this one sort of feels like kind of dry and kind of crisp feeling in the roving. I'm pretty sure this is actually roving, because all the fibers are all jumbled up. On that note, I wish fiber sellers who sold fiber, actually were more specific in labeling the type of prep they've got, because I'm new enough to get a bit confused. And when people just use the word roving as a generalization for spinning fiber, and in fact it is actually a combed preparation, I start to go question myself and get so confused. So please just use the words that are actually right, and don't just call it roving if it's not roving. Yeah, so this seems to feel like it needs a slightly shorter draft, and it's soft, but it feels like it's got like a toothiness to it, and a dry hand, kind of crisp. And this fiber provider, whatever her mill, or if she does this herself, washes it, just makes it smell so nice. Them yarn fumes. So yeah, I have more of this. I have a different colour of one of the CVMs too, which is more on the yellower browner side, whereas this is more on the greyer side. That's been interesting to spin. I'm excited to see how this plies and knits up, because this is the first experience I've had with using CVM. The last thing in this category, even though it's kind of broad, but is some fiber prep that I've been doing. I haven't really started spinning it properly, but again, this is for shave 'em to save 'em. Around this time last year, I won a door prize at an event I was at with a pound of raw Black Welsh Mountain fleece, and I washed it when I got it, and I'm still gradually carding it, because that's just what I have available to me at the moment. It's been interesting. I'm not super experienced in processing raw fleece, so I'm going to chalk this down as a learning experience so far. Firstly, I need to take more care when I actually wash it, because I think I may have slightly felted some of the locks. Secondly, this fiber in general, so this is some of the washed fiber that I've picked apart. You can see it's got sun bleach tips, which is like quite pretty. Other samples of Black Welsh Mountain I've seen are like densely black. As far as I know, this is it's like a down like breed, and it's got a hairy undercoat. And so part of doing this, I actually found some of the hairy bits, and I wish I kept them so I could show you the hairy bits. But I threw them in the bin because it was weird. It had such a different texture. But so in processing this, I found that there's a fair bit of shortcuts in the fiber, and the VM, but picking it apart helps like a lot of the little bits of VM to fall out. But before, when I was trying to card it, I was really struggling because I don't think I had opened up the locks enough to actually get some movement. So here's one of the roll eggs that I've done more recently. It's not very dense. Again, I said, I'm a beginner, but I think I should be able to spin from this. So yeah, shortcuts of fiber, dirt in it, hairy coarser bits. Then I've been finding that there's like some different, I don't know if it's just from a different part of the animal or if it's from me washing it and not doing it properly, but there's some bits of the fleece that's super easy to pull apart and has like more defined locks, and they're kind of square and about 3 inches, and they're quite dense. But then there's other bits that look like little dreadlocks, and it's kind of tough to pull apart, so I think I did felt them a little bit. But like I said, learning experience. And so back when I got this, I carded up some and I spun a little sample of it here. I'm not sure how much is in this. It's quite neppy, and I think I found it somewhat challenging to spin, but I'm going to at least do enough to put in my vivid blanket. I don't think this is enough though, and it's a good learning experience for me. I've got a pound of Gulf Coast native coming my way, which is it's one of the more endangered shave 'em to save 'em breeds. So I'm hoping I can take away some of the stuff that I learned from this and apply it to that. So mostly being more careful when I wash the fiber, and then actually taking a minute to sit down and have a look at like the lock structure and how like pick it apart rather than just trying to chuck it on there. Oh, other good tip that I found. I was reading about hand carding, and one of the things that I found most helpful in this process was you treat the cards like you're brushing a baby's hair. So you be gentle and slow with it, and if you're like ripping it apart, then that's like bad for the fleece. So and I think so far that approach has been working a lot better. For all 12 subscribers, I've got I did have a question, which was if you have any tips or suggestions on good breeds or like the ideal fiber length of a fleece, and maybe any like really reputable sources that I can get some raw fleece from that would suit a beginner at hand carding, just so I can see like what it should feel like, as opposed to starting with something that I think has been kind of difficult. I mean, even if it's a bit of wash fleece, I think that would help. But again, it's all a learning experience, and with the Black Welsh Mountain, it has been a little bit challenging for me, but we'll see how it goes. With all that spinning that I've done recently, plus finishing my Piosa cardigan, I have gotten to a stash total of 4,094 meters, and it's only June, so we'll see where we've got this. At the end of the month, Tour de Fleece is happening, which I am quite excited for. I've got some fiber picked out already that I plan to spin on my wheel, and then I'm also taking part in a spindle only group, so I'll have to actively challenge myself to spin at least on the spindle every day, if not on the wheel as well. And most of the spindle spins that I'm hoping to do is just to pick 25 grams or an ounce of a bunch of different fibers. So I've got them spun up in a 2-ply to add to my vivid blanket. Oh, and that 4,000 meters is not counting this Cotswold yet either, because obviously I haven't measured it. I only just finished it. So yeah, that's it for spinning. So like I said, I also have some sewing to talk about today. I finished the McCall's dress that I was talking to you about last time, that I said I was having some difficulty with the fitting. I'll put a picture in here. What I ended up doing was unpicking the back neck and then adding some darts in to kind of pull it so it wasn't gaping and didn't have as much fabric at the back. Unfortunately, that's kind of disrupted the neckline at the front a little bit, and I'm not sure, I've got a feeling it's like too long and I need to put get rid of some of the fabric in the front chest area so it sits flatter. And I think that either has to do with the length of my own torso or the shape of I need to shorten it here and then make it fuller around the bust. I'm not sure. I really need to learn some more pattern adjusting skills. I've got a lot of dream sewing though, and also the fabric for it, so hopefully it'll become real sewing. I want to make some shirts for my husband because I had a washing incident where these pants that I dyed purple sat in the machine too long and managed to leak dye on two of his new nicely coloured polos and also on one of my shirts and pretty much ruin them. So I need to replace those. And then I've been dreaming about sewing some sports bras, not high support sports bras, more just a little stretchy crop top, because who wants to wear a bra these days? Not me, ever. So hopefully I have some more sewing to show you next time. Then I also had some kitchen things to tell you. I've been feeling maybe a little bit homesick and really thinking about the things, like I said, with the unrest in the US. It's just given me over to more reflection about home. And for me, I guess home is Australia, regardless of the fact I'm living in the US at the moment. That got me into looking up all of the things that are easily accessible in Australia and hard to find here. So things like lolly bananas, which at least I don't like, and real legit Tim Tams, legit Milo, custard powder stuff, but then also sweet mustard pickles. And I used the Australian Women's Weekly recipe, and between me and my husband we made so much pickles. I didn't think it would make that much, but at the same time, even though they're technically not ready for another 5 weeks, we've already started eating them and they're delicious. So that's been good. As I mentioned, it's been getting hot, so I've continued to make yogurt in the Instant Pot, and we've been messing around with a bunch of different smoothie recipes. The one that I found most recently, which is a combination I wouldn't have thought of myself, but it's quite delicious, is apricot, pear, oats and banana. And I don't know, it's just this really pretty pale apricot colour and it's really delicious. I also found the only way so far that Maxwell House actually tastes decent, which is making it into cold brew and then using Alton Brown's date shake recipe and putting cold brew and dates in it, and then you can't even taste it, it's just caffeine, which doesn't say a lot for Maxwell House. It mostly just says how bad it is, and that's about it. So I guess I'll sign off and see you guys next time.